Okay. We'll have to see. Maybe we might need a temporary move.
One of the closets.
Which closet? Which one?
Here in this closet.
Uh-huh. Okay, so if you keep that in mind. Okay, everybody. So the last thing that we said, we had a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, regarding how long is the duration of Bein Hashmashot. One had a longer time, one had a shorter time. And the last thing that we said, that regarding Shabbat, we're on the bottom of 35a. Regarding Shabbat, for 35a3, we got to be strict. So the halacha says you have to look at the longer twilight zone. You have to be concerned that the twilight zone is longer, not that the day is longer and the twilight zone is very short, like Rabbi Yossi says. Rather, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that the halacha of Rabbi Yehuda in the Shabbat, the halacha of Rabbi Yossi in the Truma. Regarding Shabbat, you got to be strict. Then you have to say that the day does not extend as long as Rabbi Yossi says, and the twilight zone, good morning, Asaf, kicks in. And because the twilight zone kicks in at an earlier time, you have to refrain from doing malacha, doing work on Shabbat from that earlier time. When it comes to Truma, the halacha Rabbi Yossi inyan Truma. That's the top of 35a3. The law follows Rabbi Yossi regarding Truma. Now the Gemara is going to question that. What does that mean? The Gemara is going to say, listen, I understand Shabbat halacha. Let's talk about the Truma for a second. First, let's talk about the Shabbat. Bishlam halacha Rabbi Yehuda Shabbat. I understand the law follows Rabbi Yehuda regarding Shabbat because you got to go to Chumrah. You got to be strict when you have a question, when it's a biblical issue, right? You might be violating the Shabbat. You might not be violating the Shabbat. So you have to go ahead and be strict. You have to say that the day does not extend as long as Rabbi Yossi says. Rather, twilight, the gray zone, so to speak, the in-between time, starts at an earlier time. And therefore, you have to refrain from doing work late Friday. But once that sun goes down, you don't consider that day. But of inyan truma mahi, what does this mean regarding truma? The law follows Rabbi Yossi. Now, if you say the law follows Rabbi Yehuda regarding Shabbat and Rabbi Yossi regarding truma, that means we don't have a clarity of who the law follows, because we don't have it's a doubt to us which way to go, and therefore you would say the logic is you take the stringencies, whoever the stringency would flow. But what does it mean regarding the halacha of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi regarding truma? Now, what do we say about truma? We introduced truma. We said that if a kohen is tamei, if he's contaminated, in order for him to be able to permit it to eat truma, he has to go to the mikveh, and post the mikveh, the sun has to go down. It has to become dark. It has to become night. So what does it mean? So if you're going to say that the law follows Rabbi Yossi regarding truma, that the day is later, that means you're giving him more time to dip in the mikveh, because you're saying twilight doesn't begin, that questionable time doesn't begin until a later time. But that's a leniency, right? Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, the twilight zone begins earlier, and therefore once you're in the twilight zone, it already might be night. You can't go to the mikveh and go to the mikveh and count it as if you went to the mikveh post before it became night, right? If you say that it's twilight, that means twilight means it's not. If you say we call bein hashmashot, that it's between the days and it's not clear, is it part of the first day or it's the next day? So if you say it's in that gray zone, it might be night. If it might be night, so then you can't go to the mikveh then, because it means it's not going to help, because then he has to take the dip by day, and then the night has to come in order for him to be able to eat the truma at night, right? Is that clear, everybody? I want to make that clear. The kohen, if you want to eat the truma, good morning, Ronnie. The kohen, if he was tamei, if he was contaminated, to eat the truma, the process is he goes to the mikveh, and then the night has to come. But if the night comes before he goes to the mikveh, so then he has to wait till the next day and dip the next day, and then wait till the night to come the next day. So if we're saying that we're going to follow Rabbi Yossi The Rabbi Yossi holds that the day is longer. That
More lenient.
that the gray zone only starts much later. So that's going to be a great leniency, because therefore we're going to allow him, let's say, to go for a dip, and we're going to consider a day when according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's considered it's in the twilight zone. It might not be day, it might be night, and you can't go to a dip and while it's night and expect to eat truma that night. The dip has to happen, the tefillah has to happen by day, and then the night has to come for him to be able to eat the truma. That's what the Gemara is going to say. My ilema l'tefillah, if it means you're going to go into the mikveh, sveikahi. It's a safek. It's a question when the twilight zone began. So since it's a question when the twilight zone began, you can't allow him to follow the leniency of Rabbi Yossi and say the twilight zone did not begin yet until a much later time, and then he could go to then he's able to go to the mikveh while it's called the twilight of Rabbi Yehuda, but not the twilight of Rabbi Yossi, and he can go to the mikveh and then go and then eat the truma at night. That would be a leniency. Since it's a sveka, and maybe the twilight zone began earlier, like Rabbi Yehuda, he should not be able to go to the mikveh because it might be already night. Because the only way he can go to the mikveh and eat truma at night is only if we know he's going to take a dip by day. So the Gemara says, Ella, we're turning the page. Now we're on 35b. Ella la'achila truma. What does he mean when he says that the law follows Rabbi Yossi regarding truma? The lo achli kohanim truma, the kohanim would not be able to eat the truma ad dishalim ben hashmashot Rabbi Yossi, until the twilight zone of Rabbi Yossi is over. What does that mean to say? We said that Rabbi Yossi's twilight zone is later than the twilight zone of Rabbi Yehuda. Morning. Even though Rabbi Yehuda's twilight zone begins earlier and is a longer twilight zone, it's a longer, we call it gray area, safek, because he has a longer window of doubt of whether it's day or night. But there's a time when he calls night, Rabbi Yehuda calls night, Rabbi Yossi will at that point most probably will call that gray zone. And then a little bit later would be night. So, being that's the case, so there is a situation that we're going to be more strict. Following Rabbi Yossi's opinion could create a stringency. How can it create a stringency? It can create a stringency. It's interesting. You could say it could create a stringency also legabe Shabbat on the ending of the Shabbat, because the Shabbat will end later, according to that's what. Good morning, Simon. Rashi points that out because if they only,
why would it end later with Rabbi Yossi there?
Because Rabbi Yossi says that the gray zone starts a little bit later than what Rabbi Yehuda holds.
The gray zone has nothing to do with Shabbat ends.
Yes, the gray zone. Let's understand how the gray zone has to do with Shabbat ends. If we call the gray zone, meaning Ben Hashmashot, be twilight, where it's not day and when it's not night. So if you say that your gray zone is later than the previous, that means your gray zone, Rabbi Yehuda, let's say he says the gray zone is over by a certain point, and when he says it's over and it's night, Rabbi Yossi says that's the gray zone for his opinion.
Okay, but neither one of them argue that when Kohavim stars are out, that it's gray anymore. Now that everybody agrees that it's night.
Right. So he's holding. Let's say when you're not using the stars and using some other formula, he's holding that is still the gray zone, and you would not be able to go ahead and do work at that time. And therefore,
when is he holding that it's over?
Right, when he's holding it when it's over, so that would be a good question. It seems like it's a very short time, right? See, what does the Gemara say? The Gemara said that when the horizon when it's equal, it's black on the horizon, on the lower end of the horizon, the sky, and the top of the sky, when it's black on both ends, That's what Rabbi Yehuda says it's over. That's when Yehuda says it's night. So Rabbi Yossi seems to extend it a little bit later, drop later than that. He only says that whatever he called night, that night, it's dark over here, dark over there, maybe he felt there needed to be a higher level, a drop longer in order for it to be really considered night. That's most probably what we could say according to
Is the gray zone part of twilight?
so according to that he would still consider that even when he would still consider that the moment that it becomes that the horizon, the lower end and the top of the sky are both become dark, equally dark, Rabbi Yossi would still hold there's still a moment or two, a short amount of time that's not yet considered, let's say, completely night, perhaps. It's only night. The Gemara calls that a blink of an eye. So how long is that mark, that blink of an eye between?
Tenth of a second.
If you say 1 through 18, Buddha said 1 through 18
Again, what do you mean 1 through 18?
Immediately, whatever you want to call it.
When the sun goes down,
Yeah.
until it's black on the bottom and black on top.
So I'm saying so whatever the measurement is,
right.
Let's say 1 through 10.
Right, whatever that measurement is.
Call it measurement 1 through 10.
Right.
Minutes or time to walk somewhere, whatever you want to say.
Right.
1 through 10. Rabbi Yossi says 1 through 9.9 is still okay.
Correct.
11, who's arguing that 11's not night?
So we found here that there is this argument between Rabbi Yossi and Yehuda that what you call night, I don't call night, I call gray. That's the chidush.
Then therefore Shabbat would be
Exactly. Exactly. That's Rabbi Yossi. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. It goes a little bit.
What he calls night, he's still calling twilight.
Exactly.
Twilight's longer than a split second.
It's a question. Again, how the Gemara calls this twilight like a blink of an eye. So that's how I don't. What does the Gemara mean by saying like a blink of an eye? It sounds like it's a very. Does the Gemara mean literally a blink of an eye, or does it mean a drop? It's a very. It's almost. I mean, it's hard to even see that time between the gray zone, meaning between day and night, is almost nothing. But so therefore, whenever Rabbi Yehuda says now it became night according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi has a very short extension later. That the beginning of the time that you said now it's night, Rabbi Yehuda, I still say that is day. That is not day. That is gray.
Right. His gray is not. It's not a second like you said before.
It's not. It's again. Why can't it be? Why can't it be that?
If you say 1 through 10, his is 9.999, and then to 10.
But when it takes 10, when it hits 10, right? My Rabbi Yossi says 9.
You're saying it could be 10.1.
Right, exactly. 10.
9.9.
9.9 is day. 10. Rabbi Yehuda says 10 is night. I'm still saying that 10 is day and 10 is exactly that's what it seems. It's a blink of an eye. Right, it's a blink of an eye, and that's
so why is it such a significance if it's just a blink of an eye?
It's a very short amount of time, right? If it means literally the blink of an eye, I mean, it looks like.
What can you do in that time period?
But they're arguing because they want to. What's the truth? It's about understanding the Jews. You know what? If we only argue, we can argue in Torah, right? We can argue in halacha. We can't argue as people. We can't argue with each other. We can disagree with each other. I mean,
it's a crazy person.
Exactly, but I mean, Tosfos, seems to be bothered by a little bit about this issue over here. Maybe we'll see more about this Tosfos about such a small amount of time that they're arguing about. What? Very good. Right, very good. We're gonna. It's cut.
what to do with when they're measured.
It's coming up right now. Right. It's coming up right now.
You're talking about where we landed. We
Right,
didn't
right.
land.
But we're landing, we're getting ready to land right now. Simon,
This
Si-
is still-
we're still in the middle. We're still developing the halacha. When we get out the
Doesn't
mission.
mean we follow.
Right, we're gonna follow.
No, you don't follow this idea of when twilight is. Twilight later than you said, earlier than he said. We don't follow.
So we're gonna see. We're gonna see about this. But here we're gonna see.
You have to pick one direction.
We're getting ready to learn about the stars. The stars are coming right now, Simon. You're setting it. It's a great setup, Simon. But we saw until now. How did we identify this twilight zone? Right? When does the question of possibly it's already might be night? When is the time that I can't do work anymore? Because it might be Friday night. It might be Shabbat, right? When does that begin? So what do you say? Cannot before sundown, right? So until now, at least until now, in the Gemara, we didn't say anything about before sundown. On our Gemara, we only found about sundown and further, right? So we had Rabbi Yehuda, who has the opinion. By the way, there is an opinion, not in the Gemara, that even before sundown already becomes a question. Regarding Shabbat, right? If there is, yeah. Some say that's what's the 18 minutes about. Right, according to that opinion, but we're not. So far, we didn't see that in our Gemara. Our Gemara, like Mark said, we only see sundown. That we had Rabbi Yehuda say when the sun sets. Right, Bein Hashmashot. We said Bein Hashmashot. We said earlier when the sun goes down, and it's red. And we spoke about the redness. If it's red, still it's still red in the east, and because the west is still shining, it's giving off redness in the east. We spoke about the horizon being, it's dark on the bottom, but it's not dark on top. That's called Bein Hashmashot. And then we also got into the Gemara. We had an opinion that says it's only a distance of a half a mil, like a 9-minute distance. The whole Bein Hashmashot. One opinion says it's 3/4 of a mil. It's this about 8. Many say it's 18 minutes. So if you have half a mil, it means right. So some say it's the whole thing. The whole duration is 9 minutes. Some say the whole duration is 13 and a half minutes. And some say the whole Bein Hashmashot is only a blink of an eye. So based on those Gemaras that we have before, and then we have, we're 35A, now we're 35A, 35B1. We just turned the page. And then we had also in the Gemara that we brought rabbis that said, what's the duration of Bein Hashmashot? And actually later rabbis that talk about this 3/4 of a mil, all right, or a half. So we have these opinions regarding what's the duration of Bein Hashmashot. Now comes Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel, so we're now on 35B1. So he says, Kochav Echad. If you see one star, Simon, here we are. If you see one star, it's Yom. One star. The Gemara is going to clarify this. We're talking about
different stars, though. Is it medium stars, big star, small star?
Right. You're going to say, but you can. And if you see one star, it's day. If you see Shnayim, you see 2 stars. That's Bein Hashmashot. 2 stars already. You're already seeing a little bit more of the stars. The stars are the luminaries that are for the night, right? You see the stars. That's a sign. 2 stars. That's already you're in gray area. You're in gray area already. What is it? Is this day? Is this night? Gray area. And then if you have Shlosha, but 3 stars, then Laila. 3 stars is night, correct. And we're going to see more about this. 3 stars is night. Tanya Nami Hachi, we also learned in the Breita like this. Kochav Echad Yom, if it's 1 star, it's day. Shnayim Bein Hashmashot, 2 stars is Bein Hashmashot. And Shalosha, and if you have 3 stars, is Laila. It's night. So, and Rabbi Yossi, Lo Kochav Gedolim Hanir B'Yom. We're not talking about the large stars, because those large stars, even if you see 3 large stars, those are day stars. You see those large stars, you're able to see a day. It's large, most probably that's why you could see them. So the fact that you could, you see the 3 stars. But the big stars, but you could, most probably maybe because of the pollution, but it most probably there is such a thing in a clear area, there might be these big stars that could be seen. The Gemara says, we're not talking about those stars. You don't see them. You don't see any stars. Okay. Anybody sees any big stars? Okay. Maybe we got to get you. They don't see, okay. But it says that if you see 3 stars, 3 large stars, those stars.
The first star you see generally is the North Star. That's the brightest star. The North Star is the first star you see when it comes, 10, 12 minutes after sundown. The first one you see is the North Star, the biggest star.
Okay.
And then after that, it could be any little star to get to 3.
Okay, but
I don't know about stars.
Okay, but the Gemara, now the Gemara is teaching us a new thing that we didn't know about. Is that there are stars, there might be stars by day. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah. It might be stars by day. Thank you, Mark.
It wouldn't be exactly day, it would be twilight.
Okay,
You see the big
interesting.
stars.
What'd you say?
You would see the big stars in twilight, not in day.
Okay,
I mean,
okay,
the possibility.
But the Gemara says, what do you say, sir? Yeah, it's on the way out. You know, like a car on the way out. You gotta, See, the Gemara is saying if you see 3 stars by day, if they're large stars, it's not a sign of what of night. It's not because if they're because it's day, and the fact you see the stars, it doesn't make a difference. Because meaning, if you see 3 large stars, that's not a sign of night. And when we say you need 3 small stars, if it's a real small star, you don't need technically 3 small stars to be night, because if it's the real small stars would seem to be only seen at night. So even if you would technically see a real 1 small star, that also technically might be night. But what are we referring to when we say you see 3 stars? Elevated in 3 medium stars. If you see 3 medium stars,
you see a small star. I already saw a medium.
Right. So therefore, now that's why we look for 3 small stars. Why? Because if we look for 3 medium stars, maybe how do you know the medium stars? Maybe the 3 medium stars are really what? 3 large stars, and therefore it's not, you didn't see the right stars. Because we need to find 3 medium stars, by looking for 3 small stars, we've definitely have 3 medium stars. That's why we look for 3 small stars. That is, now, based on this Gemara over here that we said. Say it again? Right, okay, right now. So Mark said that we have the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam. What does Rabbeinu Tam say? Now, Rabbeinu Tam has the opinion, there is a Gemara somewhere else. So based on our Gemaras over here, so what are we left with? Our Gemara discussion here would sound like we've identified night in 2 different ways. Either the horizon is black on the bottom and black on top in the sky, everything is black. That seems to be one identification of night. And another identification of night is the 3 stars. But now let's work our ways backwards. But what is the duration of twilight, right? So there is a Gemara that says so and we had two opinions that says, one opinion says duration of twilight is like 9 minutes, around 9 minutes, or 13 minutes or so. So according to that, then the whole Ben Hashmashot, the whole period of twilight would be a very short, the time of doubt would be very short amount of time, 13 minutes or so would be the whole time of doubt. And now, according to that, and therefore, now, you'll find Hasidim daven mincha sometimes very late. Meaning when you're davening Ma'ariv, they're davening mincha. They could be davening mincha 40 minutes after
Yes,
sunset.
Rabbi, I've seen this
Yeah.
really.
40 minutes after
shocked.
sunset. The Ashkenaz, the Sfardim don't hold that way. You've seen that, right? Right? The Sfardim don't hold that way. The Ashkenazim also would not l'chatchila. They would, you wouldn't daven 40 minutes. Right. So because you're holding, because you can start 13 minutes to start what? Start mincha, because you're considering that you're still in the twilight zone, let's say. But the Hasidim hold you can actually some Hasidim will actually start mincha. They'll call the minyan for 40 minutes after sunset.
Wow.
So what are they based on? So they're based on that our Gemara says that the twilight zone is only this short amount of time of 13 minutes or so. 3/4 of 18, whatever that is, 13 and change. So if that's the whole twilight zone, so they're going to be lenient when it comes to mincha. They're lenient, and they say we could daven mincha up to maybe they hold. So now the question is, what do you mean? The sun has set, Rabbi. What's going on? Didn't the sun set 40 minutes earlier? You told me it's 40 minutes after sunset. How could they be davening mincha 40 minutes after sunset? How could they start mincha? Because there is an opinion that says that the actual day extends. There's two sunsets. There's like the sunset that we call sunset when the sun goes down. Once with Ashkenazim, once with the Sfardim, or once with the Hasidim, right? And there's another sunset, meaning which refers to the total removal of the light, total removal from the light of when the light is removed from the sky, which we'll see. I'll read you how the Chafetz Chaim writes it. Different than our sunset, right? It's a later sunset. There's still some and they consider that, and they will consider that still day. They will consider that still daytime, and therefore they would hold that the first sunset is not Ben Hashmashot. And because of that opinion, they will consider that day. Now, however, there are other opinions that we have that is that it takes 4 mil, and also where does the 72 minutes happen? The Rabbeinu Tam, but on the other hand, they'll extend Shabbat. They'll say Shabbat is over after 72 minutes because there's a Gemara that says from the time the sun goes down until the stars come out. There's a different Gemara that says it's 4 mil, 72 minutes. So that's where they get the 72 minutes. Because there's a Gemara in Psachim, not in our Gemara in Psachim that says the time the sun sets until the stars come out is 72 minutes. And then the commentaries are going to try grappling with this, with the different Gemaras. Our Gemara says that it's not a 72-minute gray zone. And that Gemara seems to be saying there is a 72-minute gray zone, right? So that's what the Chafetz Chaim discusses. And he says, Rabbeinu Tam makes the distinction between the Gemara Psachim. The Gemara Psachim is talking about when it says it's 72 minutes from the beginning of, if you want to calculate when the beginning of the first sunset, from the time that the sun goes down, that we don't see it, until the stars come out is a 72-minute period. Rabbeinu Tam holds. again, now today in America, maybe there's certain climates that was a 72-minute climate, but in certain other countries, it doesn't take that amount of time for the time the sun goes down, and therefore there are opinions that say
that the sun doesn't go, they're white nights.
right, but I said, but this, let's say he was talking about, let's say France or certain places. He says now, when the sun goes down, when our Gemara was talking about in Shabbat, is the end of the sundown. Is that when it also the is when the sun, the light of the sun is gone, except from the majority of the heaven, except the side of the west side, which was the side that the sun set. There's some light still in the west side, and that begins the Bein Hashmashot. Only then, according to Rabbeinu Tam, that's when the gray zone begins, which is about 13 or so minutes before the stars come out. Now Rabbeinu, now he says, but the Vilna Gaon proves, he has many different, he argues, and he says that when it comes to Shabbat, he says that the Bein Hashmashot, the window, the gray zone, begins when the sun goes down, what we call Shkiyah. Not what Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam would say what we call sundown is not sundown. It's not the sundown that the Gemara says begins the twilight zone. What?
If they didn't count, if they counted what we count, the sun was down, then stars come out much sooner than 72 minutes. By 72 minutes, there's 30 stars that start.
So how the question?
They
How
have
did,
to start later.
no, but they're saying this. The first sundown is 72 minutes before the stars come out. That's what Rabbeinu Tam is saying. In their climate, in France or whatever it was, that was took longer, right? Therefore, Rav Moshe Feinstein, I think, has a tshuva where he says, if I recall, that our 50 minutes, it will equal that darkness of the 72. So therefore, there are many. Therefore, Rav Moshe Feinstein holds Shabbat. You don't have to. According to halacha, you don't have to wait 72 minutes from sunset till you wait 72 minutes to count 72 minutes. He generally goes at 50 minutes. He goes at 50. Because he says that our 50, like you're saying, Mark, will equal that 72 minutes, that level of darkness that might have taken them 72 minutes. Now, I think you're shorter. You're a little. The Sfadim is a shorter amount of time. Okay. Because maybe the 50 was probably going with Moshe Feinstein's opinion. But I just want to say that's what was probably your Yad Yosef. Right, but the Yad Yosef says it was probably going with Moshe Feinstein's. That's what I would think they're going with. Because I presume they're going with Moshe Feinstein. That's what I would expect. They're going with Moshe Feinstein's. Even though Moshe Feinstein says a Ben Torah, you want to be strict, but the halacha, he says, 50 minutes. He says you're good. You could just. That's why the yeshiva calendar, Moshe Feinstein's yeshiva calendar, goes with that 50 minutes pretty much. They don't say the 70. Right, pretty much.
An hour of daylight, hour of evening is very different in December than it is in July.
Right. Now he says, so what did the Chafetz Chaim says? So he says, we have to, regarding the end of Bein Hashmashot, regarding the end of this twilight zone, we have to look at the stars, and since we don't know which ones are the middle stars or the Beinanim, we look for the small stars, like we said before, and he brings many opinions. The Vilna Gaon is not a lone opinion that says that. I'm in the Shulchan Aruch. I'm in the Chafetz Chaim's commentary called the Bir Halacha on the Shulchan Aruch, where he brings many opinions that say when the sun goes down, it's already called twilight. And therefore, he says, of course, halacha regarding Shabbat. The Yalkut Yosef writes it also, the Shulchan Aruch. Once the sun goes down and the whole world follows that, even the Hasidim, even though they might be lenient regarding maybe mincha, certain rabbinic laws, but they're not going to be lenient regarding the Torah laws. And therefore, regarding Shabbat, we have to be stringent, and therefore we're going to be stringent on both ends, in a certain sense. We're going to consider twilight from the sun goes down, what we call the first going down of the sun, and also we're going to say that maybe it's still maybe in the end maybe it goes later. We have to wait to we have to wait till the stars come out, because till then maybe it's still considered day. So therefore that's how we have to roll. And therefore when it comes to Shabbat, people have to be very careful with lighting the candles, because once they reach that first sunset, according to the Vilna, according to many the Gaonim, that's already considered twilight, and therefore might be Shabbat, and it'll be a violation of Shabbat. You might be violating Shabbat by doing anything if. According to those opinions, they would have an allowance, but the halacha does not follow that. The halacha is very accepted by everybody. You have to be strict, and you have to consider it as Shabbat once the sun goes down. And not only that, you're supposed to add, as Moshe Feinstein writes, a couple of minutes to the Shabbat. We shouldn't be doing it up to sunset. I want to wish everybody a beautiful.
We have one in the closet. Just need to set it up. So I meant to do it like 2 years ago.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a great day.
But I never used it. So
Thank you too.
Fine.
Thank you so much.
All right. So this is this one we've yeah, this one's cottage.
Have a great day, everybody. Until the next one comes, till the new car comes, we hold the old car until we get